I'm pressing
Baldur's Gate 3 is taking the internet by storm. At its peak, a whopping 800,000 plus concurrent players were playing this weekend, catapulting it to the number 8 most played of all time spot.
Okay.
The gaming community has sung its praises, and it's incredibly refreshing to play a feature-complete game of this caliber on day one.
Whoa.
But AAA game developers want you to know that this is Rockstar level nonsense for scope, that it's foolhardy to set expectations higher, and Baldur's Gate 3 should not be used as a raised standard to RPGs going forward.
Wait, what? Like loot, a lot of people. I'm deeply excited about what's lovely folks at Lauren accomplished with Baldur's Gate 3, but I want to gently pre-amplify pushback against players taking that excitement and using it to apply criticism or a raised standard for RPG. This is going forward. 1 out of 10. Okay.
Why was the first response to defend the current state of AAA gaming as opposed to saying, hey, maybe we can learn a thing or two from Baldur's Gate 3 and make our game better for our customers?
Yes.
This all kicked off way back on July 8th, a lifetime ago by internet standards, I know, when a writer and BAFTA nominee, Xavier Nelson, took to Twitter to express concerns about Baldur's Gate 3, namely that fans would use Baldur's Gate 3 to apply criticism or a raised standard to RPGs going forward. My rebuttal is, why shouldn't customers have raised standards? Taking it a step further, why shouldn't some AAA developers raise their own?
Yeah, we have to have raised standards. We have to know what we're aiming to get. And companies that are not producing the game that we are excited about should expect to be like flamed on, or just straight out said that, hey, you made the game that is against the community. But this thing rarely happens.
Standards. Are we really going to pretend that consumers shouldn't be a little upset right now and hoping for an improvement in the industry going forward? Rockstar just announced a $50 remake, conversion of the original Red Dead Redemption for the PlayStation 4 and Switch that has no mention of a 4K update, no mention of 60 FPS, and no mention of multiplayer support. The game came out 13 years ago, and the Xbox port does everything they're offering, and then some for free with your 360 copy.
Yeah, it's just free money printing. They just released the same title with updated graphics and convinced the players to play this game again. That's about it. It's good. I think it's very convenient from them to make this game, but is it shitty for community to eat this kind of garbage? It is, and it's well expected to be shit on.
Go buy a brand new copy of the Game of the Year edition on Amazon right now for $30 and you're good to go. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, when released on PC, had furious fans citing numerous problems getting the game to run, frequent crashes, and similar problems on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox. EA apologized and is still working to fix the issue.
It's insane. Like, I know that even Cyberpunk, the game that I'm really looking forward to playing, but I haven't purchased the game yet, they postponed the game release just because of the fact that there was a lot of bugs and they were not competent enough, and just releasing the game that's buggy. Eventually what happened, they did release the game, and the game was buggy, but it did not made such a public backlash of the game as Jedi Survivor did, like, at all. And in comparison, EA, that's multi-billion company, and then you see like I don't recall the name, the Cyberpunk company, a way smaller one that created Witcher 3 and all of the Witcher series. They don't have enough of resources, but they somehow managed to make the game that's less buggy and available on most of the systems. What breaks is just the game itself. What happens in Jedi Survivor, the game was not optimized at all, and it breaks PCs rather than breaking the game. So, what? I'm quite sad that I'm not a fan of Star Wars series, but at these moments I'm kind of glad that I'm not into the game, because I would be like with a bleeded heart saying that this game is just lacking so much of the community support and developer support to just make my dreams come true, as these series are something that I'm looking forward to. I would say it's such a thing if I would be a Star Wars fan. Yeah, but I only saw a couple of movies, and I saw those were very good. The first two. Rest of them, I didn't see that.
Destiny 2 just released a State of the Game blog saying, amongst other things, that they don't have the resources to release new ritual armor every season. But that same studio manages to create new armor sets in the shop for up to $20 a pop without fail every season. Diablo 4 unabashedly has several character skins priced at $20 each and just released their first season that had a patch that was so poorly thought out that the developers had to have an emergency live stream to apologize, and have since begun working to revert those changes.
It's not an emergency, it was planned, scheduled live stream with addition to the title, emergency or apology. They planned that the fans going to dislike it. They planned that fans will not like the game, and we're speaking about multi-billion-dollar company that is about to be sold to Microsoft. They have like AI, intelligence, smart people, and they know how community is going to react. They have their strategy. Do as less as possible, take as much consumers as you can get, or even something better. Just don't think that like the huge companies that have unlimited resources are stupid, or just didn't thought of that, or that developers forgot to add such a thing. There's huge roadblocks ahead. There's huge discussions happening, and throughout all of the information that's added on the internet and multiple videos there, you can clearly see like company is not being respected by community, not by people that are leaving the company, and ex-employees just straight up just saying that the company is bad and it's not going to change. And this is not a new thing, this is like ongoing thing. This was the thing since I think even before World of Warcraft Classic was released. This was back then when World of Warcraft was on the top and started slowly going down because of the fact that there was more optimization for players, so that Blizzard would be having more wealthy. You know what? You know all of the drills. It's really hard to tell you that you don't know the end of the sentence, but I believe you do.
We don't plan on doing a patch like this ever again.
Oh. Okay, you need a more comparable RPG example of why fans are heralding Baldur's Gate 3 as a breath of fresh air? Look no further than Mass Effect Andromeda, which was widely panned.
Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with everything.
Or Cyberpunk 2077 that made promises about last-gen game consoles that it couldn't keep. It took CDPR almost a year to get that all sorted out. I'll make this as clear as possible to contextualize how fans are feeling. It feels like money has become more important than the core experience for fans. That's why Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate 3, and even The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom are being widely celebrated. So what is up with the excuses?
Please.
A game came along that is amazing, is selling well, is being praised by developers and fans alike, and the response is, well, we can't do that. Well, sweet. If that doesn't get me hyped for Mass Effect 4, I don't know what will. Xavier's tweet was well-intentioned, and he went on to add a lot of important context, but I think it misses the perspective of the consumer. We don't know anything about games.
What? Of course, companies don't want them to be compared to anything else that is... No one wants to be compared. No one likes to be compared. When you're attacking company, of course they're going to be defensive, and they're gonna shout out that, hey, this is not a nice thing to compare us to different company, different product, and none of the companies are going to agree that like their product is not as successful as other companies' product. That's not going to happen, ever. That's not a thing. And this sort of point that everyone is trying to achieve by comparing. It just it should be like a quick glance for the companies to see how things are going, but it's for companies' politics to change, shift to consumers, so that we would be bombarded with new games that we can play, that we could try out and give our feedback, rather than we can't see anything for 4 or 5 years. Then we are having expensive trailers made. Those trailers are hidden so that you could see the actual game with the cost of $60 or $70, and I'm okay with this particular price. But when you purchase the game, it does not match the expectations of the gameplay or the trailers that was seen before, and you feel sad and you feel tricked by the game developers. And this sort of thing is not building any sort of long-term relationships. This is straight up lying to the consumer, to your player base, and this thing is just restricting you from getting more momentum and building new games. Like Witcher 1, 2, 3, those games were such cool games that because of the reputation, Cyberpunk was a highly anticipated and welcomed game, so that it would be released, and everyone was not fine, but everyone was kind of okay waiting for a game to be released with lesser bugs. Yes, the game was buggy for a year, and a lot of folks refunded the game. What happens is they managed to address the bugs, and now in even Gamescom they announced even newer update. Is it going to be buggy? I don't know, but since they had the momentum, they created 3 great titles without any sort of issues before. They could do that with new games now. Since they fixed the single player bugs for Cyberpunk, they can create new games even, and it's going to be fine. And it should be fine because they're addressing the bugs and they're fixing the problems. The way bigger companies are doing this, like EA, Bethesda, they're just giving you an MVP product with good graphics, good sound, but like so many bugs that it's not a priority to fix unless the community highlights that this is a bug and this is unplayable. This is like a keyword for them, so they would address and find the bugs. This is nonsense, right? But that thing exists and it shouldn't be allowed. Like there should be maybe some sort of regulatory thing, like if you find the 3 bugs that just disconnects you from the game, or you can't play the game because of the in-game mechanic that just forces you to purchase things. I don't know. It's hard for me to suggest, but there has to be some sort of solution, because you have very clear distinction from games that are well made, well polished, focused on player satisfaction. That's games that was released mostly around year 2000 up to 2005, something like that. And then you have newer titles that has gorgeous graphics. You have DLSS, RTX, and blah blah blah, new graphic engines, but those games just don't cut it. They just empty gameplays or simply rip-off or merges of other games. And there's not every game, but there's like most of the games is just rip-off of a rip-off that eventually gets like as least or as minimal quality or enhancement in overall product as possible. And this kind of triggers me. And Baldur's Gate, well, I don't know, we watched through the half of the video almost, but I haven't seen why this game is so well embraced despite the huge player base numbers. But I know Bethesda, I know EA, and I know Blizzard for sure. And these are the like big companies that are producing big games. Oh, sorry, I forgot the Microsoft with Halo games. That was so high on the top before, and the moment they started investing their time into profits rather than product, the player base rage have increased. Despite the player numbers increased as well, but the reputation, it's not something that should be on continuous enhancement, and it should be like, in my eyes, there should be some sort of a way out. If you see like the game shit and it's not being fixed, you should be like refund the game, not after 2 hours of not. Yeah, there should be like expanded limit, because you can't play. It's nonsense. Because current limit is 4 no, its current limit is 2 playable hours. If you played for 2 hours, over 2 hours, you can't refund the game. Or if you have purchased the game but you haven't installed the game for 2 weeks, or you haven't pressed play the game for 2 weeks, then you can freely refund. Otherwise, you're stuck with it, and it's up to developers to accept your refund request or not. And this is, in my eyes, it's insane. There should be something extra, some sort of layer of sauce that you can apply to the game or to the nonsense that is brought up by developers, as in this case like Diablo 4, so that you could just refund the game despite how long you have played. I don't know, call me insane.
Game designer how hard it is. We just know that Destiny is deleting hundreds of dollars worth of expansions when they feel like it, that Diablo is constantly reminding us to buy skins in their store, and most PC ports have been abysmal lately. Remember, that tweet was made nearly a month before Baldur's Gate 3 blew up, and it was still contentious with fans speaking up about their frustrations and developers chiming in to say what felt like game development is hard, you don't get it, be quiet. Baldur's Gate 3 is a game from a large, passionate studio that refuses to add microtransactions, gave players early access so they could address any problems that arose before launch, and is taking Steam charts by storm. So why should fans not use that as a gold standard of how to do it right? And why would a AAA studio not look at it and say, hey, maybe cramming microtransactions into our game isn't a good look? When Mass Effect 4 comes out, I don't want to see a $20 Liara skin, and I hope that its performance is tested across all platforms before release. Am I in the wrong for not wanting microtransactions and a stable video game at launch? Credit where credit's due now. There have been some really good examples of AAA games like the Dead Space remake and the Resident Evil 4 remake come to mind, both of which have been massive successes for EA and Capcom. Vampire Survivors came along and took the internet by storm last year. Do I need to bring up Elden Ring again? But that tweet blew up in the development sphere, and frankly, the pushback is just ridiculous. Developers should be looking at what Baldur's Gate 3 did and trying to replicate where they can, not jumping up to defend.
But this video is not giving me any sort of a glance. What kind of thing is Baldur's Gate 3? I think we're gonna have to watch another video.
Games that are cramming in practices that fans are getting fed up with. And make no mistake about it, these decisions impact game design. Many games are utilizing battle passes and player engagement as a metric of success. For a player, that means more grindy missions. That means more reminders to stop in the shop. It means a boring grind because keeping players engaged is a key metric. Many of the people who came out to talk about why Baldur's Gate 3 shouldn't be the new standard have since walked back those statements, and I'm glad, because if the industry can't take a good hard look at what's going wrong, why fans reacted the way they did to Elden Ring and Baldur's Gate 3, and then make impactful changes, we're screwed. Also, people seem to be using the fact that Larian is a big studio against them, the fact that they had a long development cycle against them. Really? Blizzard is also a huge studio with over 8,500 employees across several offices.
Insane number.
They credited every employee at Blizzard in the release of Diablo 4. Bungie is a huge studio with over 1,552 employees across several offices. BioWare is a huge studio with over 500 employees across several offices. And Larian is also a large studio with over 400 employees across several offices. All of them have established beloved IPs with a ton of lore to pull from. All of them have a lot of money to make video games. And all of them had a long time to make anything they wanted to make. To say Baldur's Gate 3 is successful because it's aligned with Dungeons & Dragons is insanity. You think 800,000 Steam players are playing a game called Baldur's Gate 3 because of Dungeons & Dragons? No. It's clearly gone far beyond that audience. I don't know anything about Dungeons & Dragons. I didn't know this game had anything to do with Dungeons & Dragons. And you know why I'm playing it? Because I like good games with a heavy focus on storytelling and bears. But anyway, it wasn't all doom and gloom from the development side. Thank you, Juno Bleeze, formerly of Riot, for jumping.
Oh boy, here comes my visual hot take. I can't disagree with this one more. Whenever a game disrupts the industry and delights players beyond expectations, it absolutely raises industry and genre standards regardless of the why and how.
We should look at the Larian success story and ask ourselves, how are we going to make our games better and create the next games that shake up the industry? Players should and must always expect more from us, never less.
Yeah.
Thank you. I implore AAA devs to look at these games that are being celebrated and look at your pipeline to see why the consumer is getting frustrated about the experience I outline in
Should be obvious, but it's not.
this video. And obviously try and make an improvement, because telling me how hard it is when you're breaking profit and revenue records isn't a super compelling argument from the customer's perspective. Is Baldur's Gate 3 an outlier? Yes, but I for one wish it could become the standard, and being told to shut up because I don't know game design doesn't feel super constructive. But hey, I'm just some idiot on the internet who doesn't know anything about game design. I guess I'll just go buy my horse armor and call it a day. Enjoy your $20 on top of your $100 for the collector's edition, on top of your $15 for the battle pass. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below, because I get why you're frustrated, and it's really frustrating to see people not saying, hey, maybe we could learn a thing or two from Larian. I'm enduring Baldur's Gate 3, and I hope game development continues to grow from where it is today. I hope you do too. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And for more on all things gaming, keep it right here on IGN.